Welcome to Texas PTA's Volunteers Basics. Things we hope you take away from today's training: chair responsibilities, benefits of a successful volunteer program, steps to a successful volunteer program, contacts and resources. The basic responsibilities of the volunteer chair are: promote good relations between school and community, attend volunteer workshops or training, determine and implement the best methods for recruiting volunteers, survey potential volunteers and school staff to meet the needs of the school, correlate the needs of the teachers and staff with the interests and the abilities of volunteers in making assignments, help the volunteers become familiar with the school policies, people, programs, and the facility, train volunteers, teachers, and faculty members on the volunteer program, provide a variety of experiences for the volunteers, and challenge them with assignments of increasing responsibility. Keep volunteer files current and in order. Complete necessary volunteer service reports and submit reports to district personnel. Supervise and evaluate volunteer performance and program success. In a well-developed program, volunteers are welcome in the school and their support and assistance are sought out. The procedures for volunteer participation may vary from school to school, but one thing is for certain: all schools benefit from volunteer programs. Student benefits include more adult role models, enriched learning experiences, and additional individualized and personalized attention. They learn to appreciate the talents and contributions of parents and community leaders. Research shows that the main factor in predicting student success is parental involvement. Benefits for volunteers include assisting students to achieve their goals and help them further their educations. Many times volunteers learn new skills by volunteering. They get to share their knowledge and talents with others, making them feel important and needed. Benefits to teachers range from help with clerical duties to becoming aware of and appreciating volunteer skills and talents. Teachers can use this free time to focus attention on students in need or improve lesson planning. Teachers will also have the added enthusiasm towards their classroom by having assistance with extra programs, reports, decorations that correspond with lessons, etc. Everyone in the school benefits from a successful volunteer program. Parents and community members who volunteer have a better understanding of the day-to-day operations of the school. Successful volunteer programs promote positive public relations and community attitude towards the education system. There's a pride and confidence in the community when there's a successful volunteer program at the neighborhood school. We find that most PTA leaders volunteer because they believe in our vision and mission. They truly have an interest in helping all children. Here are some other reasons people volunteer: to feel needed, to learn something new, to help someone, to gain a skill, to repay a favor, to keep busy, to feel good, to have an impact, to be part of a team, to share a talent or skill, to make new friends because they're asked, for fun, out of guilt, to fill a gap, for the recognition, to be a watchdog, to explore a new career, to be part of the community, to test themselves. Here are some common barriers to a successful volunteer program and suggestions on how to overcome these obstacles. Principals and teachers may be concerned with the volunteer's ability to maintain confidentiality. Make sure to train volunteers on school policies so that confidentiality will be maintained. Discipline is tough but necessary. Discipline guidelines and expectations need to be thoroughly covered in volunteer training. Make sure volunteers understand that everyone is welcome to volunteer, no matter how much time they have to commit to the program. Providing a range of flexible opportunities will help you engage volunteers. Ask principals and teachers what items can be done after school, at night, or on the weekends. Also, it can be helpful to break tasks down into activities or smaller bits that can be completed in an hour. For example, creating a flyer, creating a volunteer sign up for an event. Remember, not everyone is a people person, so make sure to think about the diversity of volunteers when determining volunteer opportunities. Potential volunteers with disabilities may feel there's not a place for them because of their disability. Providing tools to ensure that they will be successful or allowing them to complete tasks at home may increase their participation and help them feel valued. Not all parents with small children have childcare. Try to help with arranging childcare or giving them tasks that can be completed at home. Parents who speak other languages can help in all kinds of ways. Not only can they volunteer with students, but they can also help translate materials. Volunteering is an excellent, supportive environment for learning English. Many people equate parent groups with cliques. Always make sure you are friendly, welcoming, and approachable. Research suggests half of us would volunteer if we were asked, but we were never asked. Make sure to actively recruit volunteers in a variety of ways and let them know when help is needed and how they can help. Having a successful volunteer program is a team effort. The following players must believe in the benefits of a successful volunteer program for the students, faculty, staff, parents, and the community. School administrators who understand, encourage, and fully support the volunteer program. Teachers who are committed to working with volunteers in a variety of capacities. Parents and family members understand how important volunteers are to the school and to their children's education. Community members who are willing to support and volunteer at the school. Volunteer chair that identifies and uses resources wisely. Volunteer programs are an effective solution to many school concerns. With educational costs soaring and financing uncertain, there is a very real need for schools and PTA members to work together. Here are 7 steps to a successful volunteer program. We will be discussing each of these in detail. Step 1, assessing volunteer needs. Step 2, working with and training school staff. Step 3, setting expectations. Step 4, recruiting volunteers. Step 5, training and orienting volunteers. Step 6, retaining and recognizing volunteers. Step 7, evaluating volunteer performance and program success. Step 1, assessing volunteer needs. Why do a needs assessment? Helps prevent the volunteer program from becoming superficial, ensures that the program really benefits the school and community, documents the program's concerns to be addressed, provides information about recruiting and assigning volunteers according to skill, knowledge, interest, and other factors. Begin by defining your school's needs. Meet with the principal to get their input on the assessment. Then identify the individuals or groups that will be part of the assessment. Determine the ways you can get the information. Are you going to do a paper survey that can be placed in student folders and returned to school? Or are you going to use an electronic means to conduct your survey? Determine the content and questions of the assessment. Finally, determine the outcome of your assessment. There is a sample needs assessment in the appendix of the volunteer resource guide. When developing an action plan, you begin by setting your goals. The goals should set the general purpose for your volunteer program. Goals should be SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. One example of a goal is to improve children's reading performance by involving volunteers in the classroom. Another example is to recruit senior citizens to aid teachers in the classroom. Then you set the objectives. What specific steps are you going to use to reach your goals? Decide on activities to fulfill objectives. Examples are survey teachers and faculty, develop volunteer job descriptions, hold an orientation, Develop a plan to retain the volunteers. Provide for ongoing recognition. Consolidate your plans. Make a comprehensive list of activities during the time limit set for your program, whether it's a couple of months, a semester, or an entire year. The different activities should make it possible to accomplish the program in the time allotted. Establish a timeline. This is the timing of activities in relationship to each other, and the assignment of activities to specific persons with specific times that they are to be done. Working with the school staff is vital. Be prepared to inform staff and teachers about the mission, goals, and objectives of the volunteer program. Principals can serve as a liaison between the PTA and the staff and teachers. Make space available to volunteers. Provide a consistent process for volunteers to sign in and a place for them to do their work. Hold meetings with both volunteers and staff in attendance. Provide training for both teachers and staff on the appropriate roles of working with, communicating with, and supervising volunteers. Periodically evaluate the program by performing a checklist of current practices to ensure the needs of the students, teachers, parents, and school are met. It is important that assignments are carefully selected, are productive, are meaningful, and are closely matched to the volunteers' interests, skills, and motivation for volunteering. Volunteers want to feel that they are making a real contribution, that they are needed, and that their jobs are valued and important. A job description gives a volunteer a clear definition of the job and expectations. It also clarifies the volunteer's role for the faculty and staff who train, work with, and supervise them. The PTA volunteer chair, teachers, and school staff must collaborate to develop creative yet specific job descriptions for the volunteers. The description should include the following: a title that describes the volunteer's responsibilities, the position's importance to the school and the benefits the volunteer gains from the experience, the qualifications needed to do the job successfully, the person or persons to whom the volunteer is responsible, detailed descriptions of the volunteer's tasks, how a volunteer will be trained to prepare for an assignment, the time required for the position, such as how many hours per week or for how many weeks. Recruitment is one of the most challenging steps in the process. Everyone is a potential volunteer, regardless of race, creed, religion, experience, education, income, age, or disposition, and will most often volunteer in some way if asked. Recruitment is the process of engaging volunteers for service. So, who can volunteer? When recruiting volunteers, don't forget about these key people: parents, grandparents, brothers and sisters, extended family members, civic groups, women's clubs, fraternal organizations, retired teachers, senior citizens, college students, high school students, alumni, and professionals, local business members and parents that hold jobs in businesses throughout the community. How do you reach out and find volunteers? Arrange meetings at the school. Arrange meetings at local work sites, senior centers, retirement communities, local restaurants, with the Chamber of Commerce, etc. Use different methods: posters, pamphlets, and brochures. Have them displayed at businesses, supermarkets, banks, churches. Use community bulletin boards. Communicate through community and school newsletters or publications, websites, social media platforms. Make guest appearances on television, radio, or podcasts. Get creative. The possibilities are endless. The purpose of training volunteers is primarily to provide skill development to assist teachers and students. Training also includes opportunities to define the volunteer role more clearly through numerous activities. It gives a volunteer time and assistance in self-growth and development. This, in turn, provides motivation, greater self-confidence, and improved performance. Poorly prepared volunteers are more likely to be undependable, require excessive teacher supervision, and not remain in the program. On the other hand, volunteers who are well-trained are highly regarded by teachers who transmit the message to volunteers that they are valued members of the educational team. Here are some tips for training sessions. Training sessions should be held at varying times to accommodate schedules. The supervising teachers or staff should give input or, better yet, be a part of the training sessions with the PTA volunteer chair. They may be done one-on-one, in a small group, or a large group, depending on the task or the content of the training. Training should be focused, short-term, specific, and practical. The purpose of the training and expected outcomes should be clarified to the participants. They should never be a repetition of orientation. While volunteers may become involved for many reasons, their continued commitment and motivation are not connected to a paycheck, but a deeper kind of gratification. Retention is the art of keeping volunteers in your program and encouraging their annual reenlistment. Volunteers should develop a motivational feeling of belonging from their very first contact with your program. A major strength of your program is a core group of satisfied volunteers who return yearly. Here are some suggestions on how to develop and sustain a feeling of belonging and satisfaction among volunteers. Provide ongoing training for volunteers. Many volunteers want to learn new skills that they can use in other aspects of their lives. Allow flexibility. Not all volunteers can volunteer during the typical school day hours. Provide feedback about performance and recommend changes when necessary. Evaluate the volunteer's job often so it does not become stale. Volunteers want to do the best job possible and appreciate the supervision and the fact that you care. Share documentation of volunteer contributions with volunteers whenever possible. Include before and after pictures of art or school beautification projects and concrete evidence that volunteer services make a difference. Monitor teachers and staff to ensure that they are effectively working with volunteers. Treat volunteers as colleagues. Assign tasks that will increase skills and knowledge. Incorporate the volunteers' ideas, suggestions, and experiences when possible. Should a volunteer begin to show a lack of interest, change their assignment and/or add more responsibility. Evaluate the reasons for previous volunteer departures. Exit interviews can help with this. Recognition is the extension of appreciation for the volunteers. It is important to let your volunteers know that you appreciate the time that they have committed to your PTA and school. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to recognizing volunteers. Remember that each volunteer will feel appreciated in different ways. Here's a few ideas to get you started thinking about how to appreciate the volunteers on your campus. Include the volunteer when planning activities. Include the volunteer in staff meetings and in-service trainings when appropriate. Send a letter, note, email, text, etc. of appreciation. Take the volunteer to lunch. Call or email when the volunteer is absent or ill. Invite experienced volunteers to train newer volunteers. Seek training opportunities for the volunteer, perhaps by providing a PTA scholarship to a volunteer conference or workshop. Write an article on the volunteer's contributions for your PTA newsletter, your school newspaper, or community paper. Nominate your volunteer for a volunteer award. Celebrate outstanding contributions or achievements. Commend the volunteer to supervisory staff. Help plan a recognition event, an assembly, reception, or luncheon. Invite the superintendent, school board, administrators, parents, and community leaders. Write a letter of recommendation when the volunteer requests it. Plan to recognize the volunteer of the year or celebrate Love Your Volunteer Week. Say thank you often. Take time to have a little chit-chat from time to time. Include principals, teachers, staff, students, and encourage them to show appreciation. Smile, be creative. As with any successful program, there needs to be a continual evaluation that results in improvements. When program objectives are determined, prepare for evaluation designed to begin. Well-written objectives will provide the standards that you can use to measure accomplishments. At the end of the school year, compile all the information collected with the goals developed at the beginning of the year. You can also determine the effectiveness of the program as a whole through surveys, questionnaires, observations, and personal interviews. The same process can be used for determining how effective individual components of the program are. Remember, all participants in the school volunteer program need the opportunity to evaluate the program. There are Texas legal codes that protect volunteers who are rendering services in a recognized capacity. They require that all volunteers go through a criminal background check in order to be recognized as a volunteer. Volunteers must sign in according to school procedures. Volunteers must keep track of a date, time, and duration that they volunteer. These laws are for the protection of the volunteer, but most importantly, they are to protect the children. Under the Volunteer Protection Act, volunteers, but not the organizations they serve, cannot be held liable for negligent acts or omissions that occur during the course of their duties. For example, a PTA holds a catered event and uses PTA volunteers to help serve food. If people get food poisoning from the catered food, the volunteers serving the food cannot be held liable for it. While people could still sue the PTA or the caterer, the individual volunteers and their personal assets would be protected. Your council PTA and field service representative are excellent and convenient resources for you. Texas PTA staff and volunteer leaders are here to answer any of your questions regarding your position. Our toll-free number is 1-800-TALK-PTA, or email us directly. The Texas PTA Treasurer webpage contains many useful resources that are available to PTA members, including the Treasurer Resource Guide. You can reach the Texas PTA Finance Department at finance@texaspta.org and the Texas PTA Treasurer at treasurer@texaspta.org. National PTA's website, www.pta.org, is another valuable resource.